So you might notice that my surroundings are a little bit different. I am in eastern Kentucky right now, right around the tri-state area of Ohio and West Virginia and Kentucky. So my grandmother's brother died, so I packed up the car and headed to Kentucky and went to his funeral and had some much needed family time. I hadn't seen my family in several years. I actually haven't been to this part of town again since my mom died, so it was pretty cathartic emotionally. There was a lot going on. Now, I was able to get some photos of my great-grandmother's house, which some of you may know, this is also the house where I had my first paranormal experience. So I'm going to go ahead and share that photo with you so you can see the house and kind of get an idea of what my life was like in the summers of my childhood when I was growing up and going to eastern Kentucky and running around those hills and having my paranormal experiences and just living that Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio life. It was a good trip. Now, interestingly enough, where my grandma's family is, they are only 1 hour from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Yes, the Point Pleasant, which is the home of the infamous Mothman. I may or may not have gone to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and I kind of cleaned out their gift shop. I'm not gonna lie. I got buttons, I got magnets and postcards. I got a lot, even coffee mugs. I even got like 2 Mothman coffee mugs. They'll make appearances on my social media hubs as, you know, time progresses. Actually, no, I'll just go ahead and show you because I'm super excited. So here's the super artistic Mothman mug I got. And let me get... I also got a Mothman necklace. I apologize for my nails being a hot mess, by the way. Like, ugh. So, I got a couple of Mothman postcards, which I may or may not be able to send to people. Lots of Mothman merchandise. I also got some Mothman magnets that I bought for my team members, Association of Paranormal Study. Mothman for president. And another Mothman magnet. I think there's one more in here. Yeah, there's one more magnet in here. And then I also got buttons for my team members too. So I kind of spoiled them this time around. So I also got, here's a button, Mothman button. And I got a pink Mothman button for me. And then here's a white Mothman button I got. So, and that wasn't all. Here's the other mug I got, because I'm so extra. Here's my other Mothman mug. Finally, last but not least, I got a Mothman t-shirt. I think I might have gotten too big of a size for me though, because as y'all know, I've lost like over 100 pounds. Sometimes you still think you're the size that you were, so, you know, it'll be a good sleep shirt or, you know, a good relax at home shirt or a good relax and explore a haunted location shirt. So I'm super excited about all the Mothman merch I got. What I'm going to do, because I'm actually getting ready to head back to North Carolina today, I'm going to talk very briefly about what is Mothman, who is Mothman, and the Silver Bridge collapse. I'm going to show you some photos and videos that I took on my trip for you to enjoy. And then I'm going to head back to North Carolina. So that's pretty much it. So we're making this a short and sweet video today. It's a very different video from what I usually do. So you could say that the spooky stuff is on the road. I wish it was for better circumstances. Before we get going, be sure to click on that subscribe button, give this video a like, and don't forget to click on that notification bell because that will let you know when I upload a new video. Yeah, the flowers behind me are from my great uncle's funeral. So my cousins and aunts and uncles gave me some flowers to take back to North Carolina. And my grandmother's family, I love them to pieces and I adore them. So I'm really, really sad that my grandmother only has one brother left that's alive. So it's sad. If you're young and you're watching this and you still have your grandmas, grandpas, great aunts, great uncles, talk to them now about their stories. Talk to them about their childhoods. Get it now before it's too late. Okay, let's get started. All right, so what is Mothman? Well, we can't really dive into Mothman until we talk about like the origin story, the history. While details are conflicting and fuzzy, the first official Mothman sighting goes back to November 1st, 1966, when a National Guardsman at the Armory near Camp Conley Road, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, saw a giant bird man in the trees. It elevated from the branches and flew away. Then, on November 12, 1966, a man named Kenneth Duncan was digging the grave of his father-in-law, Homer Smith, with 4 of his friends in a cemetery near Clendenin, West Virginia. They too saw a giant bird man in the trees, and he flew away almost like a helicopter, meaning he lifted off. Then he or it glided over their heads. On November 14, 1966, a man by the name of Newell Partridge, also known as Merle, was watching TV in his home in Salem, West Virginia with his wife. Suddenly, the TV started to make this high-pitched static sound that only got louder and higher in pitch. As Newell put his hands over his ears and walked to the TV, the screen exploded. Then he heard his German Shepherd Bandit barking outside. He went outside to see what Bandit was barking at. Newell grabs his shotgun and heads outside, and he sees that Bandit is focused on the front end of the property. As he looks where Bandit is barking, he sees a pair of glowing red eyes. Newell is frozen with fear, but Bandit runs after the creature. After he hears silence, Newell goes inside and goes straight to bed. He can't find Bandit the next morning, and he tries to find the tracks. He sees Bandit's tracks, and they run, and then they go in a circle and then disappear, like Bandit just vanished out of thin air. And Newell never sees Bandit again. So on November 15th, 1966, there were 2 young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette. They had been driving, late at night, and they were around an area called the TNT area. And that was the site of a former World War II munitions plant. So, they were doing some testing and, all that stuff, lots of chemicals and all that good stuff and explosives, hence the name TNT plant. And they were around the TNT area when they saw this really, really tall creature, and they described it as a large flying man with wings. Like, I think they said 10-foot wings, something like that. And they saw the creature, they were trying to get away, and it actually kept up to pace with their car. So when you think about how fast a bird flies and all that good stuff and how they can keep up the pace of your car, I mean, this was basically the same thing. And the thing that they talked about was this creature, this large gray winged creature, had glowing red eyes, which, that's pretty terrifying. So the 2 young couples, they're scared, they're terrified. They go to the police station and report it to the police, and they all are separated and they write out statements. I mean, and what could really the police do at that point? I mean, it's like, okay, it's a large creature with wings. We can't really arrest it, so go along your way, have a good night. I forgot to mention that the 2 couples also said they saw a dead dog in the road and it matched Bandit's description. So Roger Scarberry leads Sheriff Halstead to where they saw the Mothman, but nothing was found. The dead dog they saw on the road was also gone. Sheriff Halstead did believe the 2 couples because they were young kids, young adults, and he knew them their entire lives and they had never been in trouble before. Then Halstead tried to radio into dispatch, and then he was met with a buzzing, high-pitched sound similar to probably what Newell Partridge heard, and Linda Scarberry also described the creature making this sound as well. And then over the next 2 days, more people started reports seeing a large bird with red eyes. Now, there were some theories that went out about the same time that, well, maybe it's not really a large man or a large, bird winged creature with red eyes. Maybe it's like a crane or it's an owl. Now, granted, Mothman has been reported to be about 6 or 7 feet tall, so it's pretty significant. And one of the witnesses said that when he shined his flashlight on the creature, his eyes glowed red like bicycle reflectors. So where did the name Mothman come from? It actually came from the newspapers. So based on the descriptions and everything, one could probably theorize that maybe it was more like a bat creature or a Batman. But I just said it. They couldn't use the word Batman because of DC Comics. So I believe that's why the newspapers used the word Mothman instead. And I believe there are some theories that the name Mothman was also inspired by one of Batman's nemesis. I think his name was Killer Moth. I'm not a big DC Comics person. I'm so sorry. I've read the comics, but there's a lot going on, so pulling information out of my brain is really hard. And by the way, I am also yanking all of this Mothman information from my brain too, so some of it may be incorrect. It's not that I don't care about it, it's just there's a lot going on. If this isn't crazy enough with Mothman and whatnot, this wasn't the only thing happening in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. There was also UFO sightings, and also these mysterious men in black were showing up. Yes, we're talking about what the movies Men in Black were based on or inspired by. I think inspired by is the better word here. So these mysterious men in really nice suits and slicked back hair, and their hair was, I think, shiny black too. They were going around town and basically interviewing the residents of Point Pleasant, West Virginia about things that they saw. And it was really, really interesting too, because they all drove like old cars, and there just something wasn't quite right about them. These were super mysterious men. So you had the UFO sightings, Men in Black, Mothman, and you have a haunted hotel in Point Pleasant called the Lowe Hotel. Now, I do have one friend that has a ghost story from the Lowe Hotel. Her name is Robin Pyatt Bellamy. And when she was staying at the hotel once, so there's a river that runs right next to Point Pleasant. That's the river that the Silver Bridge went over. And so Robin was, I think she was walking into her hotel room, and she saw this man in her room standing at the window. He looked like a captain, and he looked back at her, and she saw that he had no legs, and then he disappeared. And Robin thinks that, I think it might have been like a captain of one of the ships that had been going on the river. And yeah, so the Lowe Hotel is also haunted. And not only that, it is believed that there is a curse on the town of Point Pleasant. So I'm going to try to keep the curse as high a level as possible. So basically, this took place November 10th, 1777. I just realized there's a date thing here, so I'll get back to that in a moment. So there was a Native American tribal leader by the name of Chief Cornstalk, not Comstock, Cornstalk. So basically, he cursed the land as he died. His entire tribe and himself were murdered by American soldiers. So this happened November 10th, 1777. And not only that, not only was he murdered, but then his bones were moved around. So, I mean, colonialism, okay? And this was 1777, so, there might have been some run-ins with British troops as well, but apparently this was mainly American soldiers. And so this was a Shawnee tribe. Now, Chief Cornstalk is the English translation of his name. His actual name in his native tongue was Chief Hokolesqua. I am so sorry if I mispronounced it. So this was actually around the area of Ohio that he was battling American soldiers, but it was really close to Point Pleasant. So, I mean, if you go across the bridge, you pretty much hit Ohio. Chief Cornstalk survived the initial battles, but he lost a lot of his people against the American soldiers. So this altercation actually started a few years prior to his death in 1777. So October 1774, there was the Battle of Point Pleasant, and Colonel Andrew Lewis had defeated Chief Cornstalk's tribe as well as the Mingo warriors. And apparently this was like the first battle of the American Revolutionary War, and it was actually made official by an act of Congress in 1910. Fast forward, there was an American soldier that had been killed by the Shawnee people. American settlers fought back, and they ended up killing Chief Cornstalk and his people. And then apparently, yes, there was the curse. So it's interesting that, Chief Cornstalk died November 10th, 1777, because the two couples, the Scarberrys and the Millettys, they saw Mothman on November 15th, 1966. So almost 200 years later, but the date is interesting because you have November 10th and November 15th. And actually, so going back to Mothman, one of the first headlines that came out after, the Scarberrys and the Millettys saw Mothman, the newspaper the next morning said, couples see man-sized bird creature something. I find that so relatable because it's like they saw something, but we don't know what it was. So, like, what are you, Mothman? Yes, and he will be sitting next to Madison. So you had the Mothman sightings, UFO sightings, Men in Black, and of course we have the Chief Cornstalk curse. All this is kind of coming together. And then about 13 months later, on December 15th, 1967, so actually 13 months to the day after the first Mothman sighting, the Silver Bridge collapsed. So, it's December 15th, there was rush hour traffic happening, and the bridge collapsed under the weight of this rush hour traffic. So all these cars are falling into the water, people are screaming, and, you hear this loud bang as the bridge collapsed. And so 46 people lost their lives. 2 of those people were never found. And when I was looking at the river, I thought, well, it moves pretty slow, but then my cousin reminded me, like, if you're actually in the water moves a lot faster. So there's a good chance that those bodies were floating downstream and just never were recovered. And so there is a memorial plaque there. You do have to walk like a little bit beyond the flood wall. We actually walked by it. I completely missed it. And there's also a buoy floating, it looks like right where the bridge used to be, because it was right next to the railroad bridge. And I have to say it was eerie to be there. Now, I did turn on my recorder, and I was recording my conversation with my cousin and trying to make contact with whoever may be around or, just hanging out there, whether it was a victim of the Silver Bridge collapse, an old resident of Point Pleasant, whichever. And I heard some interesting things in the recording. Now, my cousin Hallie is a total skeptic, and when I listened to the recording, I didn't capture anything significant. So here's a peek at what I caught. So conversations made me meh, and this was also technically her first EVP session, so it was just really just super casual, not a serious investigation, nothing like that, because I just wanted to turn on the recorder to see what we caught. So take a listen, let me know what you think. That's terrifying. And plus, like, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, it's a tragedy. The Native Americans here were literally robbed of their land. Finally, while I was in Point Pleasant, I visited the Mothman Museum. And this museum is incredible. It has really rare artifacts. It also has props from the movie The Mothman Prophecy, which was a book based off of a book written by John Keel. Now, the book by John Keel and the movie are very different. John Keel actually has more documentation about the Men in Black and the UFO sightings in the Mothman Prophecies. And as well as, the Mothman sightings. It's actually a really good book. If you haven't read the book yet, check out the link in the description and grab a copy yourself or check your local library. It's a very popular book. Really good book. So the museum has the actual police statements or the written statements written by the Scarberries and the Milettis, which is really, really neat. So you can actually see their handwriting. You can see the pieces of paper. They also have a piece of the Silver Bridge. Oh, by the way, the reason why the Silver Bridge collapsed was because there was a defect in the eye-bar, just one eye-bar, and it was one defect in the suspension chain, and that little eye-bar gave out, made the entire bridge collapse, and 46 people died. But yeah, so there's displays about the Silver Bridge, there's movie props like Richard Gere's watch, this telephone that he used, the styrofoam cement that was used. There's a lot there. Costumes. There's also displays about the Men in Black, John Keel. There's a lot of really good stuff there, and if you find yourself in Point Pleasant, definitely go to the museum. Go to the Mothman Museum. It's really, really interesting, and you learn a lot. And then, of course, we went to the gift shop, and I spent way too much money. And also, there is a Mothman statue. For some reason, the statue has a very anatomically correct butt, which I went up and rubbed and smacked, because that's what you do, because there's an actual webcam that's like a live stream where you can watch people smack Mothman's bottom. So I will put that link in the comments too if you want to see. And yeah, so Mothman is a very big part of Point Pleasant, and starting, I believe it was 2002, the Mothman Festival started. So the same person who started the Mothman Museum, Jeff Wamsley, he also headed up the Mothman Festival. So every year, thousands and thousands of people gather to Point Pleasant for the Mothman Festival. There's performances, there's live speakers, there's so much going on with the Mothman Festival, and I really want to go. I've never been. I want to go. It's on my bucket list. And also, in memory of Chief Cornstalk and everything that had happened around Point Pleasant, around the flood wall, there are murals painted, and they're actually really beautiful murals. And there's a statue of Chief Cornstalk. I didn't get a video or photo of that because I forgot. And it was such a good day trip. It's about an hour drive away from where I was, so it wasn't bad. An hour long day trip, or an hour long drive for a day trip, and then an hour back. Now, if I was driving straight from where I live to Point Pleasant, then it would be about 7 hours. So for me, I would probably mix it in with something else. But you have to go to Point Pleasant if you haven't been. Definitely check it out. I hope you enjoyed the videos and photos, and thanks for coming along with me on my trip to Point Pleasant. Now, there are much better articles and videos and podcasts about Mothman, and they have a lot more details about what happened. Way better job than I did. I just wanted to give you a preview of what Mothman is like, and hopefully give you enough of a teaser to make you want to take your own trip. I hope you enjoyed going with me on my trip to Point Pleasant. Thanks for watching this video if you made it to the end. Let me know what you think about Mothman. Now, so theories. So some people think that Mothman caused the Silver Bridge collapse. I don't personally think that. Considering the Silver Bridge collapse happened about 13 months after the first Mothman sighting, I'm more on the theory that maybe he was warning everyone, but also there's another theory that maybe major elementals like spirits and whatnot like to watch major events, because there are some reports that Mothman was seen on the Silver Bridge as well. I don't know. And the thing is, Mothman is still seen around the world. There are sightings every day, and I believe the Mothman Museum is actually collecting Mothman sighting reports. If it's not the museum, it's definitely someone around Point Pleasant collecting stories. And there's always some sort of story coming out saying Mothman-like creature seen in Chicago, and it's so bizarre. And some people have reported they saw Mothman before the tragedy of 9/11. It's really, really interesting. It's really interesting how even though Mothman, the sightings, the active sightings happened decades ago, it's still a very important part of our pop culture, especially in the paranormal world. And the town of Point Pleasant has boomed and thrived because of Mothman, because it boosts their economy with all of the people coming in, not just for the festival, but thousands of people are coming every day to the museum, to visit the Silver Bridge Memorial, the TNT area, still an active area. They do tours and everything. It's really interesting. So, what do you think Mothman is? Do you think Mothman was an observer of the tragedy? Was he warning people of the tragedy, or did he cause the tragedy? Have you seen Mothman? Has Mothman been seen in your area? Let me know in the comments. And as always, feel free to share this with your friends and family who also enjoy the spooky stuff and Mothman. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next round.